Hello Dr. Linda, my name is Nurul Nadiatul Hikmah binti Hakemi, and I'm going to explain briefly to you regarding our social problems that come from one main issue, which is population. Population has become main issue regardless of the state of the countries, whether it is a developed or a developing countries. Differences in the social, economic, and cultural system lead to different sets of problems relating to population in developing and developed countries. The developed countries are characterized by high level of industrialization and urbanization, high per capita incomes dependent of a major part of the workforce on secondary and tertiary activities, and an efficient and productive agricultural sector. This happens because of low death rate and high rates of life expectancy. As a result, a large section of population is above 60 years of age and is dependent on the relatively small workforce. Also, financial problems arise on account of pensions, health services, unregulated growth of urban centers leads to growth of slum, which creates many social and environmental problems. The highly productive agricultural land is enriched by urban houses, roads, and industry. Thus, the developing and the developed countries share many of the problems related to the population. But the problem of low population developing countries and the high population developing countries differ substantially. Therefore, my fellow groupmates will further explain regarding the social problems that occurs because of population issues in many countries around the world, developed or developing countries, and I will pass it to my next groupmate to explain more.
Thank you so much to previous presenter. So next, I will be discussing an article about population issue that happened in the developed world, and the country that I choose is Japan. So for the next one is that this population issue is also has been affecting the developed country, where most of this country facing shortage of labor force. So just take an example like the Japan country. So for this population issue, it was taken from the article The Economic Challenge of Japan Aging Crisis by Japan Times News. So in this article, it's addressed that more than 20% of Japan population is over 65 years old, which is the highest in the world. So by 2030, 1 in every 3 people will eventually be 65 years old or older, and 1 in every 5 people is 75 plus years old in Japan. While the fertility rate for Japan has declined due to change of lifestyle, where young population they tend to marry late, which has caused the birth rate for Japan significantly drop. So, because of this imbalanced proportion between the young generation and the elderly, the causal effect of aging is leaving its mark on the macroeconomic of Japan, especially in the labor force and the capital accumulation. And due to the nation aging and shrinking population, there is an increased need to address the labor shortage, because people will eventually retire and leave for the workforce as they start aging. And at the present, there are not enough young people in Japan to fill in the vacuum owing to the decline of fertility rate as well. So, with a low birth rate in Japan, this country will be facing shortage of skilled young workers. Therefore, in order to fill in the demand of labor in various economic sectors in Japan, the government has increased the age of retirement for its workers in Japan and also increased the numbers of importing immigration workers in order to fill in the demand for labor.
I want to talk about developing country that have a population problem. The country that we choose is Afghanistan. Afghanistan, officially the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, is a landlocked country at the crossroads of Central and South Asia, where it happened. As we know, the United Nations Human Development Office has ranked Afghanistan as 171 out of 188 countries in the Human Development Index. The report states that insecurity, poverty, endemic corruption, and weak governance are the main reasons for hampering development in Afghanistan. What is happened? The establishment of the Democratic Republic of Afghanistan in 1978, the Soviet invasions of the country the following years, and the continuing conflicts following the Soviet withdrawal in 1989 severely disrupted the country's population pattern. Civil war and the destructions of towns and villages caused mass movement of people in two major directions: immigration mainly to Pakistan and Iran, or internal resettlement to the relative safety of Kabul. The population of Kabul is estimated to have doubled in size. Kabul has grown to encompass almost half the urban population of the country. Afghanistan's population is mainly rural. Nearly half the population is under 15 years of age. Life expectancy is about 51 years of men and 54 years for women. Decades of wars and its fallout have devastated the stability of the population. During late 1980, some 6 billion people, probably one-third of the Afghan population, at the time were refugees, especially due to the Afghan war. Some 3.5 billion were living in Pakistan, and perhaps another 2 million were in Iran. Although many were repatriated during the 1990s, the numbers of those internally and externally displaced rose again after 200 as a result of continued severe strife, economic hardship, and extended and severe doors, the Afghanistan war, and the security transition following the 2014 withdrawal of foreign troops. By 2060, there are more than 2.5 billion refugees registered abroad, and more than 1 billion people were internally displaced. How? The war in Afghanistan continues destroying life due to the direct consequences of violence and the war's induced breakdown of public health, security, and infrastructure. Civilians have been killed by crossfire, improvised explosive device IEDs, assassination, bombing, and night raids into houses of suspected insurgents. Even the absence of fighting, unexploded ordnance from previous war, and United States cluster bombs continue to kill. Hospitals in Afghanistan are treating large number of war wounded, including amputations and burns victims. The war has also impacted invisible wars. In 2019, the Afghan Ministry of Public Health reported that full two-thirds of Afghans suffer from mental health problems. This has caused the population's problem in Afghanistan to deteriorate. This problem until now is still a factor in the problems of population.
Population problems also occur in third world countries. Third world countries are a group of countries that has a same colonial history and in the process of developing their economy and social aspects. Most of these countries have achieved their independence from the colonial power after World War II. One of the third world countries that having a population problem is Somalia. Somalia is Africa's easternmost nation and it's located on the Horn of Africa. Somalia occupying a strategic geopolitical position between sub-Saharan Africa and the countries of Arabia and Southwestern Asia. Somalia is a country of geographic extreme. The climate is mostly dry and humid. Majority of the country is flat with few natural obstacles to mobility. Somalia is a global outlier in demographic terms, with fertility rate 6.4 children per woman. This country has the highest infant mortality rate in the world. Even though the rate of infant mortality is high, the fertility rate also high that make the population grow rapidly. Somalia population increased fourfold since 1917 from 3.6 million to 12.3 million, even though the population density remains low. If the rates of fertility remain constant at the current level, Somalia will be home to 33 million people by 2050. Women in third world countries like Somalia hardly have access to knowledge and contraception that can help them to understand and avoid bringing more children into such a poor country that can worsening the overpopulation issue. If they realize that how many problems will occur if they having more children, they will realize that it's going to worsen their country's famine. The demographic indicators reflect that the country incredibly poor healthcare situation and a signal that shows that the country's economic and security are having problems that will be difficult to overcome. The country also didn't have enough resources such as water and agricultural productions to sustain the current population that was rapidly increased. Women in Somalia are massively disempowered and cannot say no in such decisions. If they are having pregnant, they will recognize the children to be a blessing from God and said that they would not gotten pregnant if God had not desired to bring that life into the world. This will be harder to convince them to reduce the amount of children that they have. This problem also occurs because government cannot keep the country under control, which is enforce the policy. They need to find a solution with teaching the people in the country about the importance of reducing the amount of children that they produce.
In conclusion, the population condition in a country is influenced by birth rates and death rates. When a country has a high birth rate compared to the death rate, it means that the country has a large population and more young people than elderly. However, if a country has lower birth rate compared to the death rate, it means that the country has low population and more old people than young people. Developing country has large population compared to the developed country. The differences of number of population has bring differences impact to developing country and developed country. The low population in developed countries has made it easy for the country to develop. The welfare of its people is safeguarded in terms of health and comfort of life. It also helps government easy to control its people. However, the lack of population has led to energy shortage in various sectors and also a waste of resources in the country. The large population in developing countries has made it difficult for the government to control its people. The welfare of its people is poorly maintained due to lack of technology in healthcare, and illiteracy rate are also high due to low education. In addition, this also causes the resources available in the country are not enough to be used for development purposes, and unemployment is also high because there are insufficient employment opportunities. Therefore, the death rate and birth rate should be balanced in a country so that development in a country can be developed given the needs in terms of economic, social, and technology sufficient to meet the need of the people in a country.